Do I think streaming services are inherently evil and taking advantage of artists and that they should be giving us boatloads more money? All right, so I figured I'd do a couple videos about the economics of being in a band because from what I've seen on YouTube, there aren't a whole lot of videos out there where people discuss numbers and kind of give disclosure. And even amongst friends that are in bands, there's kind of this taboo thing about asking how much bands make, be it per show or from streaming or merch sales or stuff like this. It's kind of weird. Like, people sooner discuss what they do at home in their bedroom than they will their money. Anyway, so let's talk about streaming. People blame Spotify and streaming services as being the devil and that they hose bands and that bands should be making more money for services that play music and potentially expose them to larger audiences, and they really don't have to do any work in order to obtain it. I don't know. I mean, audio karate came up in the sort of towards the end of the CD era and the beginning of the MP3 and streaming era, and then we went away, and then we came back once vinyl became a thing, and honestly, that's probably where bands can potentially make the most money, especially if they have historic releases like we do, which, by the way, if you go to audiokaratestore.com, we have the Iodine Recordings 20th Anniversary Lady Melody in all three variants there, a couple limited numbers of those, and the second pressing of the Wiretap Records Hidden Home Records collaborative reissue of Space Camp. This isn't the janky one that Cleopatra Records put out. This is the one that we put out with a lot of love and attention, and there's a very limited number of those still floating around, and we have some on the store. I want to say they are 15 bucks. So buy one for your neighbor, buy one for your mom, but pick those up. So anyway, back to streaming, and you'll have to forgive me. I'm gonna look at my phone here because I have some exact numbers, and I can discuss intimately why a band might be inclined to re-record a historic release. So a little bit of history and context. Back in 2001, in the fall, we signed a 3-record deal with Kung Fu Records. Now, at the time, Kung Fu was home to the Ataris, Tsunami Bomb, Assorted Jelly Beans, the Vandals, Useless ID, and a couple other bands, and this was absolutely huge for us. So they gave us $20,000 to go make a record, and we holed up at West Beach Recordings in Hollywood with Trevor Keith of Face to Face and Chad Blinman, who had just done the Get Up Kids Something to Write Home About, and we recorded Space Camp. Then we went on tour, and we went to Japan and England a couple times and Europe, and all of that costs money. Then in the winter of 2003, we went to the Blasting Room in Fort Collins, and we made another album, which costed us about $30,000 to make, give or take. And then we hit the road again, and flights and buses and sprinters and all these things. So all told, we ended up owing Kung Fu Records about $70,000 in unrecouped debt. If I had to give a very conservative, educated guess, worldwide in the CD era, we probably sold somewhere around 30 to 40,000 copies of both albums combined in all the markets. And yet the debt was still, last time I looked at a royalty sheet, around $70,000. Now, none of this is meant to throw shade at Kung Fu. I love Joe Escalante and all the folks at Kung Fu, and to be perfectly honest with you, if you asked me right now to give 70,000 bucks to 4 alcoholic kids from San Gabriel Valley and East LA to go make records and tour around, I would probably decline. So is there any regrets? Were they predatory, anything like that? Absolutely not. They got to write us a check, we got to make records, and we didn't become Blink-182. That's how the music business goes, right? Anyway, Kung Fu was acquired by Cleopatra, which means they bought the catalogs and all the rights to the records so that they could then put them out. They also bought the debt. So we now technically owe Cleopatra $70,000. What does this have to do with streaming? Well, for every play we get on iTunes or Spotify, that generates somewhere between 0.002 and 0.004 cents per stream. Now this goes towards, in theory, recouping our $70,000 owed. However, it gets a little murky because it's not like every single cent and dollar goes towards recouping. It is fractional, so I'd say probably somewhere between 5 and 10% of that fraction of a cent goes towards recouping. So the reality is, unless Nintendo 89 ends up getting 2.5 billion plays overnight, we are probably never going to recoup that debt. Oh well. So what does that have to do with us? Well, we have since gone back and recorded some of the songs from Space Camp. We've done Drama Club Romance and Halfway Decent. So mind you, we've never made 1 penny off of streaming, and if you take a song, let's look at Spotify, like Halfway Decent, it's sitting right around 200,000 streams on Spotify alone, and if I pull up my handy dandy calculator, 200,000 times 0.004, it's $800, which isn't a lot of money, but if you have 20, 30 songs and they all make you $800, you know, now we're talking kind of some decent scratch, right? But we haven't seen a penny of that. If you take a song like Nintendo 89, that one has 1 million streams on Spotify alone. So pulling up the calculator one more time, 1 million streams times 0.4 of a cent, $4,000. So coming back to the songs that we've since re-recorded. Now we own those out and out. We had to pay for studio time and stuff like that. However, that is fun, and that's just, you know, if you make music, you can probably agree with me that there's nothing funner than going to a studio and making a record, right? So Halfway Decent, Gabe's version, as it is called on the streaming services, has 12,805 streams, and that has made us $51. So 12,000 streams has made us $51 more than 1 million streams of Nintendo 89. So I know a couple years back, Taylor Swift re-recorded her records and probably made boatloads of money doing it. So is it about the money? No. I mean, the money is, this is a passive byproduct. Like, it's out there anyway. We just wanted to record them. In time, will they cover the recording costs and everything that went into it? Absolutely. I would say that holding onto your digital is very important to anyone who's in a band out there and is potentially being courted by a record company or two, and they're getting into sort of the figures about streaming and physical sales and percentages and splits. So in 2018 or 19, we put out a record called Malo on Wiretap Records. What's up, Rob? And that one, we have 80% of the digital. So Wiretap gets 20% of each of the streams, which is super fair considering they did a ton of promotional and handled all the manufacturing costs for the vinyl and a couple of other details. And basically all we had to do was come up with artwork and the recordings, which were already done and have been done for about a decade. So the most popular song on that is a song called Saturday Night, You Ain't Downful. And that one has 142,344 streams and has made us a cool $410.99. Again, that one song has made us more than every single song on Space Camp and Lady Melody combined. In closing, do I think streaming services are inherently evil and taking advantage of artists and that they should be giving us boatloads more money? No. I'm not naive, right? Do I think it's super cool that whoever is watching this basically lives in an era where they can listen to any song they want for free? Yes, I think that is super duper cool. But I'm an ancient old guy, so what do I know? And if you would like to support Audio Karate by not spending 1 cent at all, go on to Spotify or your favorite streaming service, you know, iTunes or whatever the young people listen to music on. Although if you're watching this, you're probably 35 to 45 according to YouTube demographics. And give Audio Karate a stream. We've made a lot more music since 2018 than just the Space Camp and Lady Melody songs. And per usual, leave a comment, leave a like, and subscribe if you're not already doing so. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.